Thank you, Gagay, for that very interesting talk. And one of the things I learned from your presentation today that it was new for me is how important it is for electronic journal to be processed very quickly through the complaints department, and what a big difference it makes to a customer, even when there is perhaps a mistake as far as the customer is concerned, but that if you can fix that very quickly, it changes the customer's attitude towards the bank very massively. Yeah? Very interesting, thank you. Those of you who were here last year, you will know that KAL does an annual survey of the global ATM software market. It is published by ATM Marketplace every year. And we did this year's survey as well, and it is published and available for you to download. So we have now done that for 4 years, and you can download the 4 years if you want and see how things have changed. So I was going to quickly run through a little bit of a summary of what came out of the survey for 2011. Just a little quick summary, not all the detail, but you can download it all if you like. It's free of charge from ATM Marketplace. Who responded to the survey? Well, there were 127 large banks, 203 smaller banks, ATM deployers as well, 120, some vendors, and some others. 33% of the banks that responded were multinational. And as you can see, we got a very good regional breakdown. So we've got Asian banks, European banks, US banks, Canadian banks, and banks from South America. The sizes of the ATM networks of those who responded, 28% of the respondents had fairly small networks of 100 ATMs or less. And as you can see at the other end, 38% of the respondents had really huge networks of 2,000 plus. So we managed to get a really good survey of all the different banks, we believe, on a global basis. So the first question, the one that we are most interested in, are you planning to change your ATM software? And we kind of asked the question over the 4 years, and you can see the way it's changed, which is very interesting, I think. You can see that from 2009 to 2010 to 2011, it's gone from 9% to 17% to 25%, banks saying that this year they have budgeted a software change on their ATMs. And then years planning for the next 2 years, again, pretty strong, 20%, 25%, 23%. No just changed it. In other words, of course, we are seeing people changing it in the past, and that's increasing as well. And most interestingly, no plans to change our software going down, right, from 33% to 17%. So what's that about? It's about banks realizing that the software is a very critical part of what your ATMs do, and it is how you remain competitive. It's how you differentiate yourself from what other banks do. And we'll talk a little bit more about that as part of this survey. So what are the reasons for changing a bank's ATM software? This is quite a big list, and you see it adds up to more than 100% because we allowed banks to mark multiple answers. And this is not sorted in a particular order, but you can see cost reduction, very important, and in fact was the most important reason last year. A little bit less so, because cost is not the primary focus of banks, it seems, this year compared with last year. Productivity increases. Security is still a very high reason for changing the software, things like EMV, smart card support, triple DES, remote key distribution, biometric support. And as you know, what's needed in different parts of the world is different. So, EMV is very important in Europe, triple DES support, pretty much everybody should have changed. Remote key distribution is probably for everybody. Biometrics, quite important for those countries that are not going to smart cards in the short term. Compliance with regulatory stuff, of course, you all have to do that. Very important reason to change your software. PCI compliance, disabilities, regulation compliance, and so on. Enhanced user experience, added functionality, really high this year, much higher than it has been in the past. New technologies there. So these are the reasons why banks are changing their ATM software, and they're changing it more than they used to in the past. Are you running multi-vendor ATM software, or are you planning to do that in the future? A significant proportion of big banks are running multi-vendor ATM software, less so for the smaller banks. 34% of those who responded were running multi-vendor ATM software today. Or They might even sometimes have a single ATM vendor, but run multi-vendor ATM software. And in fact, OTP is a good example where when Gergely started the project, they had only NCR machines, and then they very quickly moved on to having a multi-vendor estate because it made sense, because it gave them more flexibility, more independence from the manufacturers, and more choice in terms of the hardware choices that you have available. You see, another 18% are considering multi-vendor software, and then there are some that are not multi-vendor today, and a small percentage that are not considering multi-vendor ATM software. Our view is that multi-vendor ATM software is the direction for the larger banks and some of the medium-sized banks as well. And one of the most interesting is that, a long time ago, we had a bank in Kenya, Co-op Bank of Kenya, that had just 30 ATMs when they went multi-vendor ATM software, and today they have 400. And that change was very easy and very quick for them to do because, of course, they had the multi-vendor software in place first. And you might think that, for a bank with 30 ATMs, that wasn't the primary focus, but it was, because it helped them to make decisions about the directions in the future, gave them the flexibility to negotiate with the hardware manufacturers. Who controls your ATM software? This is beginning to be a very interesting new thought process that is happening with banks, because there was a time when banks thought of ATMs like you might buy a microwave oven where you buy one and you change it 10 years later, and you're very happy if it cooks your food, but you're not looking for sophistication, and you're not looking to change the software inside that microwave oven. But the ATM is not an appliance. It is not something that you buy and you forget, because this is the most critical touch point that you have with your customers. So all the things that you do to differentiate yourself from that channel is critically important. You want it to be enhanced, you want it to move, you want the screens to be great, you want new transactions, a lot of things that Gergely talked about, and banks are beginning to realize that that is a critical part of what they need to do to stay competitive in their markets. So you see that that means taking control of the way that those changes happen, because they don't want any longer to be dependent on vendors delivering innovation, because of course they want to make those choices for themselves, and they also don't want to wait until a vendor might deliver that to them. They want to be able to do that either by themselves or make sure that they have that choice. We then ask another question. It's one of the things that comes up all the time. What's the direction for the operating system? There's a little bit of conversation about Linux and so on. Well, this is quite interesting. Windows XP, you know that ATMs are a Windows world, and there are some reasons why it is. A lot of people don't see a need to change from Windows XP, but a very significant percentage, and that's a percentage that's thinking about changes and the change process, saying we want Windows 7 pretty quickly, a couple of years, maybe 3 to 5 years. And then there's a small percentage saying, well, if only we had another choice, Linux perhaps, and then quite a significant proportion of no opinion. I don't really know why that's such a big proportion. Perhaps because it's not such a big issue just at the moment. Perhaps not until Microsoft says, hey, XP is finished, and you've got to go to something else. We asked another question, not really that related to ATM software, which is, we said, which channel do you think is the most important channel for you? You see, there isn't much confusion there. Branch and ATM pretty close in terms of what they think is the most important channel. And I guess from some of what I heard today in the morning, I think some of us will probably think that that's going to overtake the ATM channel, is perhaps going to overtake the branch. Internet continues to be really important, but of course, as you well know, you can't just have the internet channel only. You need to dispense cash and do other things that are physical. Mobile phone and call center is not really going anywhere at the moment, but we have to see. I mean, perhaps with iPads and iPhones, that might change a little bit, but it doesn't look like it's a very popular channel yet for your banking transactions. So that's my quick summary. There's much more detail if you want to download that from atmmarketplace.com. It is free of charge.